सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Okay, so today we'll look at the Gita again. And I know Shikanji, you had a few questions. We can discuss those too. Perhaps after 30 minutes or so, once we cover a little bit of ground, we can get into the Q&A part. And I think, let me share my screen. Nikita is here now, obviously with a new background. So, don't see new background because you're in a new place now. Anyway, so who would want to volunteer? Shikanji, would you like to go?
Sure. Bhagavad Gita, the Lord's Song. There are a variety of Gitas. The Anugita, Uttara Gita, Kama Gita, Pandava Gita, Hamsa Gita, Siddha Gita, Rama Gita, Uddhava Gita, Ganesha Gita, etc. But the most popular one is the Bhagavad Gita. The title Bhagavad Gita means the song Gita of the Lord, Bhagavan. It is considered a song because it is in the form of verse and therefore pleasing. It has only 2 meters, Anushtup and Trishtup, making the Gita easy to recite and remember. The Gita is also pleasing because it has subject matter that is highly desirable to all. The word Bhagavad Gita is feminine in gender because the Veda, the word Shruti, is feminine, further revealing that what is said in the Gita is said in the Shruti. And who is Bhagavan here? Krishna is Bhagavan. Krishna is the one who has proved that he has the sixfold Bhaga and is therefore looked upon as Bhagavan. Once you understand the meaning of Bhagavan as the one who has Bhaga, Krishna being Bhagavan presents no problem at all. One can look at the title Bhagavad Gita in another way, as a song that has Bhagavan in its subject matter. This is similar to saying electronic knowledge, knowledge whose subject matter is electronics. Therefore, we can take the title Bhagavad Gita to mean either Bhagavan's Gita or Gita song that has Bhagavan as its subject matter.
Beautiful. If you can proceed, we can continue.
Yes. The subject matter of the Gita. This Bhagavad Gita, with Bhagavan as its subject matter, actually has two aspects because both a life of activity and a life of renunciation are presented. One is Yoga Shastra, in that it talks about Karma Yoga, and the other is Brahma Vidya, knowledge of Brahman. Its subject matter, therefore, implies both activity and the renunciation of activity. Since both the lifestyles are meant for Brahma Vidya is its real subject matter. It is this Brahma Vidya that is pursued by a sannyasi to the exclusion of all else, a sannyasi being the one who has given up all karmas. While a sannyasi pursues only Brahma Vidya, a karma yogi pursues Brahma Vidya plus karma. How does a karma yogi pursue karma? With a certain attitude whereby the karma that is done becomes yoga for him or her. Because both Brahma Vidya and Karma Yoga are found in the Gita, its subject matter is twofold: Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra.
Any questions on this part that we looked at? So,
So,
go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick question. What is the so? It said first that it is the subject matter is Brahma Vidya, but then there is also Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. What is the how do we reconcile that?
Yeah, no, wonderful question. So the subject matter is Brahma Vidya only, ultimately. Um, uh, the here's this is not the best example, but I'm going to give a limited example, and then I'll try to refine that example if I can. So imagine that you have to get to the terrace. Now there are two ways to do that. One is you take the staircase, or you take the elevator. So ultimately, the goal of either one of these approaches is to get to the top. It's to get to the terrace. Now, the reason I say this example is a little flawed is because it appears as if I have proposed two alternative pathways to the terrace, the two margas, so to speak, the staircase or the elevator. And this is not really true when it comes to the Bhagavad Gita or Brahma Vidya rather. Um, the thing about Brahma Vidya is Brahma Vidya is the subject matter of all of the Vedas, really. Whereas, and it seems a little contradictory when one hears about it, because if you look at the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, the subject matter doesn't appear to be Brahma Vidya because you're engaged in many actions, yajnas, pujas, vidhis, nishedhas, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, that kind of thing. So then the question is, wait, how does this Brahma Vidya feature if one says that the Tatsparyam of the entire Veda is Brahma Vidya? In fact, if you look at the, not that I've studied it yet, I'm planning to, but just a brief glimpse of the Brahma Sutras, the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the whole goal of Adi Shankaracharyaji's commentary is to show that the Shiromani of the Vedas, or the crown jewel over here, is nothing but Brahma Vidya. Everything else is supplementary, not complementary. Also, it is supplementary to the fact that you are Brahman here and now. But everything else that helps prepare one to arrive at a certain state of the antakarana, which is shuddha enough, which is pure enough to be able to imbibe this deep knowledge and to be able to reflect upon it and to be able to contemplate upon it as one's own swarupa. That is the purpose of all of the other Vedas also. When I say all of the other Vedas, I mean the Karma Kanda. So when it comes to the Bhagavad Gita also, for instance, what it says over here is that Brahma Vidya, which is the knowledge of the self, is the only goal of the Shastra. It is also the only goal for a Karma Yogi as well as a sannyasi. The sannyasi here is one who pursues Jnana Yoga predominantly. The Karma Yogi is one who pursues Karma Yoga predominantly. But now, unlike the elevator and the staircase example, there are not two ways to Brahma Vidya. The only way to Brahma Vidya is through Vidya, which is Jnana. But what the Karma Yogi is doing is approaching actions in the context of this knowledge, where the results of the actions are not meant for self gratification, but the results of the actions accrue as one's punya, a very sukshma form of punya karma, which is what we say results in antakarana shuddhi. So I'll give you a simple example of that. The same action done with a excuse me, done with a different attitude will give rise to very different results. Suppose I dedicate money to mandir to instate a murti. I pay for the sculpting of the murti. I pay for the installation. I pay for the prana pratishtha. All of these things I have done this. Now I can either do it because I want to gain some fame, so that the next time somebody goes to that mandir, they'll see my name is outside on a plaque that, oh, Prashant Parekh donated XYZ lakhs to this temple for so and so purpose. And then, every time I go there, people will treat me as a VIP. The pujaris and all will be like, oh, hello, 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 wonderful, wonderful. You've donated a wing to our mandir, and this is so great, and you paid for the renovation. That is one form of punya, which is not to say that I'm discouraging people from doing that, though it is not to be encouraged either, to be honest, as a Vedanta student. But that is one form of punya karma. I'm sure we've all seen people do this, right? That, बढ़ाई करते हैं अपनी आप की when they've done something good. And the more you advertise a dharmic action to others, the more punya will be accrued to you in the form of yashas, which is fame. But now there are many other things that come along with it also. The other thing is that manitvam comes into the picture. Manitvam means the sense ki in ego and arrogance. And arrogance comes into play that I have done something. And so what this kind of attitude does is it defeats the vision that I am doing this in the service of Ishvara. I am playing a role as a nimitta who is here to maintain the order, the dharmic order, and I am simply doing my part. But when somebody is sort of like popping their collar, being like, "Ah, maine kiya hai. Look at me. I'm so special. I'm so great." That same action will accrue as this yashas, as fame, as perhaps notoriety also. If you know what they've done, it's not a very good job. Maybe they hired a subpar karigar, something like that. Okay, so now suppose you have a karma yogi. The karma yogi will do the same thing, but this time the karma yogi knows that I am doing this because I am nothing but an instrument through which Ishvara is sustaining this order. I am, and this is not in a very demeaning way that I am a cog in the wheel and the world, the cycle of the world keeps turning and the wheel keeps turning and I'm just a small insignificant. It's not in that demeaning sense. It's more like to recognize that every single aspect of this cosmos is interconnected and everybody has a certain role to play. Pujya Swamiji puts it very nicely. He says that if you have a wheel, then what is the you have the axle of the wheel and then you have the fulcrum. So he says if the fulcrum doesn't move, then the wheel is jammed and there's a problem. If the axle of the wheel starts moving, then also there's a problem. The fulcrum has to move, the axle has to, the axle has to move, and the fulcrum has to stay in its place. Because that is the swadharma of these individual components of the wheel. In the same way, we all have our own respective swadharmas, whether it is as a human being, as a certain person belonging to a certain varna, perhaps. There are varna dharmas also there. There's dharmas as a husband. There are certain different dharmas as a wife. There's different dharmas as a grandchild, so on and so forth. So as long as people play their dharma and they recognize that what I am doing, it is not my own doing, but it is simply Ishvara that is getting things done through me, then I offer all actions to Ishvara and I receive all results as a sign of gratitude, as a prasadam from Ishvara. And this is what makes me a karma yogi. With this attitude of karma yoga, what it's done is it's cleared the pathway to many obstacles that I will encounter in the pursuit of self knowledge. And so indirectly, even the karma yogi is out only to attain Brahma Vidya, but the karma yogi has a little bit of groundwork to do, a little bit of housekeeping to do. There are certain impending responsibilities that the karma yogi has to take care of, and the karma yogi may not have the same level of antakarana shuddhi as somebody who is ready to quit everything here and now and take to sannyasa. They may still have a few affections for their family members, and they may still have some unfulfilled goals and unfulfilled dreams. They want to maybe start a company, they maybe want to do some charitable, build some charitable trust, whatever it is. They still want to do certain things that they have to do as kartas, but they also see in the distance that my ultimate goal is Brahma Vidya, but I still have to take care of these things along the way. And as I take care of these things along the way, I have to take the support of Ishvara, and the support of Ishvara is me looking at myself as a bhakta, to look upon Ishvara as Bhagavan, to look upon myself as a karma yogi, and to look upon Ishvara as a karma phaladata. And so that relationship is what defines a karma yogi, which is to have that relationship with Ishvara. And Pujya Samji, it's never enough to keep stating the same fact that Pujya Samji says there is no such thing as secular karma yoga. There is no karma yoga without Ishvara. If one says that I'm a karma yogi because I'm doing my duty, but I'm an agnostic or I'm an atheist or whatever, you're not a karma yogi. You're simply somebody who has identified as the doer and who will continue to identify as a doer without any hope for knowledge, because doership cannot be removed without first sublating it into Ishvara. You cannot suddenly jump from the fact that I am an enormous doer into the fact that I am the non-doer. You can't make that leap. It's impossible. It's impossible. Karma yoga is the only way to get it done. Sorry.
So I have questions here. So first of all, thanks for that explanation. I think it makes for complete sense. So at the end of the first paragraph of this section says its subject matter therefore implies both activity and renunciation of activity. And renunciation of activity is what is that for sannyasis, or is that for the students of Brahma Vidya, or for both? What is the connection between these three uh, elements?
So this is also a very deep question. We have to see renunciation. So activity is straightforward, right?
Yes.
Karma. Activity, the renunciation part is a little tricky to understand. The renunciation can be at two different levels. One is a figurative renunciation, and the other is an actual renunciation. So the sannyasi is a figurative and an actual renunciate, because they have actually, there's what is this called? You have the pravritti and the nivritti. So there are two dharmas, pravritti dharma, nivritti dharma, and they have taken to the nivritti dharma, which is that, been there, done that. Now, I want to say that, this there are many sannyasis. Like, I have some friends, like, because I'm from Mumbai, there are a lot of like Gujaratis and Marwadi Jains also that you have. There were a couple of people that were there in the community where they were given this bal, they became bal munis of sorts. And then after that, because they have not had a chance, when you're like 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, they have this huge ceremony, okay, a massive ceremony, like a marriage kind of ceremony when they take sannyasa. Different levels of sannyasa we're talking about. Teachings are very different. But they celebrate this. The only problem from a psychology perspective is that one cannot assume that because a child is born in a certain traditional household, that they will be devoid of aspirations. And so, I can tell you, like my God, I was bursting with aspirations. If my parents gave me, put me into sannyasa or something when I was a child, I would actually have gone insane. And that happens a lot, because one may have unfulfilled sexual desires. They may have a certain need for recognition. They may have a certain need for being loved and for being cared after. They may need validation from their family members, from their friends, some form of achievement that they want to accomplish, whatnot. And so when those things are suddenly suppressed and you bottle it, it explodes in a very unhealthy manner, and it creates a lot of psychological problems. So what our shastra, the beauty, the glory of the Vedas is that it is not a complete nivritti marga textbook, that you have to leave everything in order to be happy. That is a recipe for disaster, because self knowledge cannot come just by leaving everything if there are certain desires that need to be suppressed. And so what karma yoga allows us to do is, in a very healthy and mature way, to accomplish these desires, but keeping everything centered around Ishvara, so that even the accomplishment of these desires ultimately contributes to my emotional and intellectual growth. And based on that emotional intellectual growth of the individual, that person has a natural inclination towards self knowledge. The outcome of Antakarana Shuddhi is that the person will readily gravitate towards Brahma Vidya. They will not need to be pushed in that direction. They will automatically find their way there, because the mind is ready and the karmas have rectified as a result of it. So this, the first form of renunciation is sort of the physical aspect of it, which is that you give things up because there's nothing else to accomplish. The person who takes to sannyasa may not yet be a jnani, though it is possible. There are two types: you have vidvata sannyasa and vividisha sannyasa. So in the first case, you have taken sannyasa as the natural culmination of knowledge, because kuch karne ka baki hi nahi hai. You have recognized that, yes, Ishavasam idam sarvam, sarvam kalavidam Brahma. All that is there is nothing but Brahma, and I am that Brahma. And so that knowledge automatically takes one to sannyasa, because you have nothing left to do. Every action that we pursue is born from a desire. Think about it. No matter what I do, even if I want to watch a movie, there's a desire. I want to take a walk, there's a desire. I want to get married, there's a desire. I want to have children, there's a desire. This with Bharyam, this, that, all of these different things. They're all but a whole slew of desires. And I'm not saying that's a wrong thing. What I'm saying is for the sannyasi, who's a Vidvat sannyasi, these desires have gone, finished. The person takes sannyasa because there's no desire left. Now there's the second type of sannyasi, who's the Vividisha sannyasi, where they take to sannyasa because their nishtha is very strong, but it is not complete. They know that the path is very clear to me, that this world, it's kind of like Maitreyi in the story of Samvada Maitreyi, Yajnavalkya Samvada, where she recognizes कि हाँ, you're leaving all of these things behind, but उसमें कुछ है नहीं, खोखला है. It's all empty. There's nothing to it. I want to pursue knowledge. So that Vividisha sannyasi has that seekership. The seekership starts, bubbling, and then they take to sannyasa because it's a very natural thing for them to do. Now, that second type of sannyasa is also an antara sannyasa of sorts, which is very reminiscent of King Janak. King Janak had a lot of responsibilities. He was a king. He was responsible for his family. He was responsible for his kingdom. There were people who were looking up to him. He had to execute his, duties as a great leader. So he had to do all of these things, but he was also simultaneously a, a renunciate. And when I say he was a renunciate, he did all of these things without doing these things. He ate without eating. He cooked without cooking. He ruled the kingdom without ruling the kingdom. If that makes sense.
So he's not a sannyasi per se, but he's doing everything with a sannyasi bhava, maybe?
Yes, and that is what you call Naishkarmya Siddhi. Naishkarmya Siddhi is where one's sense of doership has been sublated in the knowledge of the self, knowing that I am actually not a doer, and doing continues to happen. Now, this is a rare phenomenon. This is not a very typical thing one will find, but it is not so rare that you will not find anybody.
So
Ujja Swamiji himself,
Is Arjuna also in the same category then?
not while he's still asking questions.
Oh no, I mean yeah, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, maybe.
When he says no that mera moh chala gaya, I forget the exact shloka, but he says no that my delusion has been extinguished. So one can look at it that way, but
Okay.
it's hard to say for Arjuna. One can say that for sure for Bhishma. That we know for sure. Because Bhishma Yukti Mukti Pradayakaya Namaha is one of the Ashtottara names of Sri Krishna. And so the fact that Bhishma attained Mukti is symbolic of the fact that he was Janak level, King Janak level. Now Arjuna, hard to say because there's also the Uttara Gita, where there's this whole heat of the war that he's in the heat of the war he says, I forgot some of the important things that you taught me, Krishna Bhagavan. Please, can you uh, share these same teachings once again when they return back to the kingdom. And so Krishna Bhagavan gives a summary version of the Bhagavad Gita, and that is the Uttara Gita. So then it's arguable that maybe kuch baki hai, because maybe Arjuna understood everything. Yeah, that's possible. But for Jnana Nishtha to take place, the understanding has to be very um, it has to be complete, and it has to be um, uninterrupted. Which means that you can't, once jnana has taken place, you can't be shaken out of it. It's there. It's taken root. It's kind of like one can plant a sapling, but if there's a storm, it may be uprooted. Whereas jnana will not be uprooted.
So when it says that when Swamiji here says Brahma Vidya is its real subject matter, and subsequently there is a there's a Yoga Shastra part to it, then it is basically your Karma Yoga leading to Brahma Vidya, and along the way you slowly lose your sense of doership, and then attain that level of Brahma Vidya after that.
Not without jnanam. So karma yoga,
Not without, sorry?
not without jnanam. Karma
Jnanam.
yoga itself will not give rise to Brahma Vidya, but
Okay.
it will
Okay.
give rise to the Antakarana Shuddhi, which will create a disposition for jnana to take place.
Okay. Okay.
But
Understood.
jnana can only be attained through Shavana. And I don't even say Mananam and Nidhasanan because those become optional if one is an Uttamadhikari. उत्तम अधिकारी के लिए only तत्वमसि, these three words, vakyas, one mahavakya is sufficient. But the more antakarana ashuddhi, the greater the exposure to the teachings, and the greater is the need for karma yoga. And so, karma yoga ultimately is all in service of Brahma Vidya only. A karma yogi cannot be a karma yogi independent of being a mumukshu. A karma yogi must be a mumukshu. If the karma yogi is not a mumukshu, as per the Vedantic teachings, he is not a karma yogi. He can't be a mumukshu and not be a karma yogi, and he can't be a karma yogi and not be a mumukshu. Because the karma yogi is not in that chakkar anymore of, oh, I want to do something for name, fame, glory, all of that. He's not in that anymore. Very mature. Karma yoga is very mature. But unfortunately, I forget, but during the freedom struggle that Bharat had to go through, there were many commentaries where Karma yoga was made akin to being a dutiful person. Which is a very, I mean, frankly, I don't know who came up with such commentaries, but very immature way of understanding these teachings. It's not just duty orientation. Duty orientation is built into Karma yoga, but Karma yoga is more than that also. Because I can't be a karma yogi by being a criminal. That's why I can say I offer my criminal activities to Ishvara. I accept the spoils of my criminal activity as prasadam. I can't do that. That's why karma yoga, one of the multiple explanations of karma yoga in the Gita itself, and this is just a preview, but one of them is yoga karmasu kaushalam. That means the actions that are aligned with the order, appropriate actions. Kaushalam here is appropriate. Some Pujya Swamiji only points all this out. I mean, not my emphasis on it. It's his only. He says that sometimes people translate or mistranslate Kaushalam as skilled in the context of this. But in the context of Karma Yoga, he says even a pickpocket can be very skilled. But that does not make his actions Kaushalam. Kaushalam here means appropriate. Appropriate to Dharma. That.
Yeah,
Very good
thank you, Ji.
questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And you had one more question, no? You said?
No, no, that was the Arjuna question.
Acha. If Anandji, new microphone.
No, I actually don't have it yet. I left it somewhere. I can't find it.
I
But if
see, I
I'm
see.
audible now, I can read.
Yeah, yeah. It's not bad.
Okay. Brahmavidya, knowledge of what is. Brahmavidya means knowledge of what is. What is Brahman? What is Ishvara, the Lord? What is the reality of the world, Jagat? What is the nature of the individual Jiva? What is the truth of oneself, Atma? What is the relationship between the Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara? What is the reality of each of them? Is there anything common among them? Are they are they all one or are they separate entities? Brahmavidya, knowledge of Brahman, reveals all of this. To gain this Brahmavidya, there are certain qualifications mentioned which Karma Yoga alone can provide. To help one gain these qualifications, Karma Yoga is discussed in detail in the Gita. Because both Karma Yoga and Brahma Vidya are dealt with, the Gita is considered complete and referred to as Gita Shastra. This is what is meant by one particular verse praising the Gita. Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimanyai Shastra Vistaraihi. The Gita has to be studied well. What is the what is the use of studying other elaborate works? The completeness of the subject matter unfolded by the Gita is highlighted here. People always say that whenever they are in trouble, they go to the Gita and their problem is solved. Maybe they do find answers in the Gita because one can read into it whenever, whatever one wants. Be that as it may, the Gita has something of its own to give. Do you want what it has to give? That is the question.
Okay. Any questions, sir? This nicely ties into that FOMO thing that we were talking about, Shikanji, about different scriptures. I also have that massive FOMO, massive FOMO. It's not a good thing personally, I feel, and I've slowly started to move away from it. And here's how it really works. The way I've come to see Vedanta is it is like a fractal, and or you can think of it as. Have you watched Enter the Dragon? Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee.
The Bruce Lee movie?
You remember the
Uh,
last scene where they
yes.
are in this hall of mirrors, and then there are multiple reflections of himself, and then he's fighting with that Han fellow, with the guy with the iron claw. Anyway, so it's a little bit Vedanta is a little bit like that, which is if it's a stupid example, maybe it's a good one, but like this Bruce Lee over here is like Brahma Vidya. And all of these reflections, the different mirrors are like different scriptures which are showing the same thing. Maybe there's a slight emphasis on something or the other here and there, but the subject matter of each of these is the same. So, Puja Swamiji, and the reason why this thing started wearing thin a little bit, my FOMO means like fear of missing out, um, is because Puja Swamiji said in one of his Panchadashi pravachans that I was listening to, he said that I never bother going completely into the text and verse by verse unfolding. He says I don't do that because he says that the way Puja Swamiji teaches, for instance, and to put a caveat out there, I have said this before. I will say it 50 more times in the course of our sessions. I don't think in the last 150, 200, however many 100 years have passed, there has been a teacher more effective than Pujya Swami Dayandaji when it comes to showing the meaning of the teachings to the student. I personally, my personal opinion, and that of some people that I also respect, is that Pujya Swamiji is at the level of Adi Shankaracharya, both in his Jnana Nishtha and also in his contribution to how the teaching is to be understood. His loyalty to the Shankara Bhashya is unsurpassed. Pujya Swamiji is extremely committed to bringing out the purest, unsullied uh, teachings of Adi Shankaracharya ji. Brilliant, just brilliant, and he shows it to you. But what Pujya Swamiji doesn't do for a very good reason is he tries to ensure that people don't look upon Shastra and cultivate Shastra Vasana also. Because ultimately you have Loka Vasana, you have Shastra Vasana. Shastra Vasana is superior, of course. It's superior. It is not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, if the subject matter of all the Shastras is the same, the Tatparyam is Brahma Vidya alone, then it should not matter whether I've studied 5 texts or 10 texts or 20 texts or all of these commentaries or not. Because then that becomes sort of checking the box key. Done, 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 done. Rather, Pujya Swamiji tries to sit with a certain shloka or a mantra, and he'll sit with it and he'll take his own sweet time, not rushed by a certain schedule. That suppose Pujya Swamiji has a 2 week slot where he has to give a series of talks on, let's just give an example of Drik Dirsha Viveka or on the Bhagavad Gita or whatever. He will take his time to show the whole vision and not be weighed down by the fact that I have to complete X number of mantras in Y number of days. Because then what will be happening is he will give a partial view of everything, but something will be left unsaid because maybe he has, just as an example, maybe he has like 7 hours of insights on mantra 1 and 30 minutes of insights on mantra 2 and so on and so forth. And then he will be sort of like, he doesn't do that. He just reveals, and in a way that you don't feel that the teaching is interrupted at all. He will give you a continuous vision, a continuous vision. And so, when I recognize Pujya Swamiji's style of teaching, if you look, sometimes I've shown you my study room, and there's so many books on the shelves, and it's like I don't think most of these books will get completed by me before my body falls. I don't think I will complete these books, and frankly, I don't think I even want to, because based on my exposure to Puja Swamiji and the little bit of understanding that I have, I think I have understood the Tatparya Vishaya. And so I would only want to focus on those things which will help me deepen the knowledge further and further and further and further and further, but not for the sake of actually moving on from one text to the other. Because then, it can become a never ending quest for knowledge. And this quest has already ended when one recognizes that I am free here and now. There's nothing else that I need to do. Now, of course, when it comes to one's uh, ability and desire to teach, suppose, let's say right now I'm a grihastha, right now I'm dependent upon my job and other things for my source of income. Let's say, suppose, in the next 10, 15, 20, whatever number of years, suppose I were to take to sannyasa, and then if I wanted to teach properly, then I have a certain responsibility. I have a certain responsibility to have studied these various works in great detail, because then my responsibility is for the preservation of the tradition. Now I am a sort of a cornerstone upon which the foundation of these teachings will be built and passed down to the next generation. So when it comes to those kinds of duties, then yes, of course, but today if you ask, if you were to ask Pujya Swamiji about any shloka from Gita or Brahma Sutra, something or the other, he will have it at the back of his hand, like this only, pat, 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 pat. He could do the Gita forward, backward, whatever combination. But he did not want his students to be bogged down by that personally. And as one takes to sannyasa and as one becomes a teacher, let's say in Asha Vidya Gurukulam or elsewhere, then it is by dint of mere exposure to the teachings that you will become familiar with the text, because that is what you're doing. That this is a sannyasa yoga, jnana yoga. That's when you're teaching the Shastra day in and day out, and you're contemplating day in and day out, and one doesn't have those typical grihastha duties, kam pe jao, ghar aao, khana banao, this and that, all of those things are not there. Then, of course, one will be immersed in the Shastra, and automatically knowledge will, the verses and all, familiarity will take place. They also have a very intensive course where they teach Sanskrit and all at the Gurukulam. So all of that happens naturally. Swamini Swatma Vidandaji also. It's like, many times I like to sit with her and I'll ask questions, and she'll just be able to pull some obscure verse from some obscure text that you've never heard of, and she'll give you like 5, 6, 7 mantras, in sequence, and just then explain the meaning out of the blue. Because that exposure is there. But for us, like, if the intention is to gain self-knowledge, it is always recommended that one gains that knowledge first, and then if one wants, one can attain more vidvarta, scholarship afterwards. Um, the other thing is that in our tradition, usually, unfortunately, this may not be the case for most of us, myself included, but usually when one goes to this Gurukulam system, uh, what is it called? Antevasin, a student who studies with the teacher, who stays with the teacher. This student is taught all of the Vedas, but what they are taught of is the general sense of the meaning, not specific, a very samanya drishti se, very general sense. But then they are taught all of the mantras in a way that helps them memorize them also. Because if you think about it, I think most of us are in our, with the exception of I think Manthan, most of us are in our 30s or 40s or something like that. Right? So for us, it is very difficult to pick up a new language if you have to. It is very difficult to pick up a new musical instrument. Now, Ambika, who's like 5.5 years, for her, she'll pick it up like this, whether it's piano or anything. You give her a new language, whatever you teach her, she'll pick it up, because at that age, the mind is very elastic. There's this elasticity of the mind. And then as one gets older, there's some pruning process that happens. In the neurons also get pruned. And then ultimately, knowledge becomes more crystallized. And so, the habits, in fact, this is also, they say that the music that you liked as a teenager is kind of the same things that you listen to for the rest of your life as well. It will become like it will give you a sense of nostalgia, the stuff that you heard as a teenager earlier. But anything that you hear later on, even if it's good, you will not feel nostalgic about it. Very interesting. Anyway, that's unrelated. But so here, children who went to the Gurukulam were taught all of the mantras sequentially. They were taught how to chant. They were taught this, the swaras of the Vedas, all of these things. So when they actually, because at that age, 7, 8, 9 year old, what Brahma Vidya you will teach? For us it is not so easy to appreciate Brahma Vidya at this age also. What will children appreciate? So in that age group, for that age group, there is a huge advantage to helping them memorize things. So I think Shikanji, you mentioned that you will help the kids memorize. That's the best thing you can do at this point. Get them to memorize this so that as they get older, you can actually teach them, and then they will not have to occupy the mind trying to figure out how will I learn the Gita now? How will I memorize the shlokas? Personally, if I ever ask like should I memorize the Gita, I don't want to. I have no intention to, because I know that that age has passed, and the amount of time that I would personally take to memorize 700 shlokas, I'd much rather like put that use personally to being able to contemplate upon the teachings, because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. There's no guarantee. There's one, I'll not take names, there's one sannyasi teacher from our Gurukulam who is also currently undergoing cancer treatment. There's no guarantee of life, right? Chemotherapy and all these things can happen to anybody. And these days, people in their 30s and 40s are also dropping dead like this. So the question that one should ask oneself, just for the sake of, I guess, not really to cultivate vairagya, but it's sort of like Purushartha Nishchaya. What is my goal? Is my goal to study the Shastras, or is my goal self-knowledge? If it is the latter, then the only way to approach this, or the only way to accomplish it, is by studying with a guru and allowing that guru to give us the right inputs on what one needs to do. My guru said that personally, Prashant, keep doing chintanam. Not worry, chinta. That's a very good thing to say. But chintanam here means keep contemplating upon the teaching, contemplation upon the nature of the self. Contemplate. Because the thing is that I keep saying this, and it's really worth saying over and over again. Vedanta is not like a certain time slot that one assigns for the teaching. What one does during Shavanam, there has to be an effort to keep that alive over the course of our day as well. Because otherwise, what happens is it becomes a window. It becomes like a college subject that today I'm attending physics class, tomorrow I'll attend chemistry, now I'll attend Vedanta class. And then Vedanta becomes compartmentalized into this thing that I need to do. And then it becomes a to-do list. Vedanta is not a to-do list. Vedanta is my truth, who I am. And to know who I am, I need to be able to look upon myself as what the teaching is unfolding about myself. And when the gap between who I am and who I think myself to be, when that gap has narrowed down and collapsed, that is when knowledge takes place. And so, I see this happening in a lot of people who start off Vedanta, and even unfortunately, some people who have years and years of experience. There was some auntie, I don't know, she messaged me, and I said that, I was talking about Jnana, and she said, "Oh, I'm already Jnani." I said, "Really? Yeah, I understand I am Brahman, I'm already Jnani." I said, "Okay, bye. Thank you, wonderful, glad to know." And anyway, these problems happen. And that is why Karma Yoga, very important. Because as I live my life right now, it is obvious that there are certain pockets of time over the course of my day where I don't have the luxury to either contemplate upon the deeper truths of Vedanta or to study Vedanta. During some pockets, of course, we should make time for it. During those times, I have to continue to maintain a relationship with Ishvara. There will be times when I'll be angry. There will be times when I'll be frustrated. For instance, Swamiji once mentioned that if a person, there was one person who came to Swamiji and he's like, "Yeah, I feel really angry with Ishvara, and because so and so things in my life haven't gone well." So Swamiji said, "Yes, you can even fight with Ishvara. You can fight with Ishvara because at least somebody will listen to you. If nobody else, at least Bhagwan is there to listen, and that will take away some of the anger automatically." So Pujya Swamiji has given a beautiful set of talks also on how to build a relationship with Ishvara, and that relationship is for a karma yogi. This is not like lip service or anything. For a karma yogi, Ishvara has to be the first and foremost relationship of one's life, even ahead of one's spouse, ahead of one's parents, ahead of one's child. Ishvara has to be the foremost relationship. Every other relationship has to be designed around the relationship that I have as Ishvara, with Ishvara. My primary identity as a Karma Yogi, I'm not talking about as Brahma Vidya level, I'm just saying as a Karma Yogi. My primary identity should be as a Bhakta, and then as a father, son, this, that, whatever. But the best part is that when I identify as a Bhakta, and I'm constantly in touch with Bhagavan, then all of my other duties will also happen very effortlessly. It will not be a struggle for me to accomplish my other feats in life, because it's a natural. It comes very naturally. There's not much struggle. There's not much resistance. Not that I have accomplished. Today also there were issues that I was facing which troubled me and which angered me a lot. Right, but these ups and downs will keep happening in life. But as long as we remain steadfast and we maintain our nishtha, that okay, if nobody is there, Bhagwan is still there for us. It is like if we lean on individuals for support, it is like leaning on a cardboard box. Yeah, it will support you for a while, but if that box, if it starts raining, that box becomes soggy, then the box will also collapse. It's the same way if we rely on individuals, ultimately, either people leave us, or they're dead, or they dislike us after a certain point, but nobody will listen to you infinitely. Right? Nobody has the patience for that. Bhagwan does. At some point, everybody will say that, I love you very much. You're a very good friend of mine, but I have something else to do. So we'll connect another day. And we've all done this to people in our lives, right? And when somebody talks a lot, yap 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 yap, they're complaining all the time. At some point, you will just want to get out. Bhagwan will not get out. Bhagwan is more committed to us than we are to Bhagwan. And that is the tragedy of life. When we meet Bhagwan halfway, then there's nothing that we need to worry about in life. Bhagwan will carry us. Wherever we go, Bhagwan will hold our hand, and Bhagwan will make sure that we don't fall. And even if we fall, Bhagwan will pick us back up. That is the relationship that a Karma Yogi has with Bhagwan. Now, is there a secular Karma Yoga possible? Can't. You can't do it. Does that address the thing that we were talking about? Happy to go into it more deeply also. Good. Okay. And any other questions around that you have? I think there were a couple of other things, but it's slipping my mind at this point.
You mean the one that I sent to you?
Yeah. Something about a routine or a roadmap or something. No?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I could
Roadmap.
discuss that privately also if you like, if that makes sense. If you are free after the call, also we can connect. Does that sound good?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, yeah.
Or
Maybe tomorrow or something like that.
okay, sure. Or is this something you think that we can discuss that somebody else may also benefit? Is this something that others are also looking into, which is that just a roadmap for Vedanta and what is like the path forward for studies? Is it relevant to anyone?
I think it would be relevant to
Okay,
me.
so yeah, for at the risk of sounding like a broken record, find a guru, take a lot of guidance from that guru, and Swamini Brahmapragyaji also mentioned that sometimes a person may have a few blockers, and usually those blockers are not practical blockers, but they are emotional blockers, which prevent us from seeking out a guru. But once that is done, typically, what I recommend is, along with interfacing with such a teacher, study to the extent a person feels like. I don't want to push or force or sound that I'm being pushy about it. To the extent that one can, try to remain, um, try to narrow down the sources that you study from to no more than two people that you diligently listen to, two at most three. And out of those two or three people, at most three, I would say keep Pujya Swamiji at the center. To the extent that you can read his books, you can listen to his pravachans. There are an endless amount of pravachans on YouTube also. If you can't find them, I will send you the MP3s. I have enough MP3s to last me my entire life of Pujya Swamiji. So I'm happy to share those and try to uh, do his guided meditation series. His guided meditation series is it's a blessing from Bhagwan that we are able to sit in the comfort of our homes and have Pujya Swamiji hold our hand and make us see the truth of Ishvara as oneself. Uh, you know, the guided meditation is very underrated. There's another set of books that Pujya Swamiji is taught, which again people sort of overlook because they are a very general series of talks, like freedom from sadness, freedom from a sense of limitations, building a relationship with Ishvara, discovering love. All of these like different small books of Pujya Swamiji, but they are so profound, and they become even more profound when one has a background of Vedanta. Because one thing about Pujya Swamiji that I have found in my personal interaction with Pujya Swamiji, but even more so listening to his talks and reading his books, is there is not a single statement that comes out of his mouth which is not meaningful. One just has to have a certain alertness and appreciation for what that meaning sounds like. It's like we have all of life is only us interpreting a series of experiences in the form of meanings as they are relevant to us. Every experience is only an experience that is mapped to a certain mental construct that we have created, right? It's kind of like we don't see the world as it is, but we see the world as we want it to be. That's how we see the world. We don't see people as they are, but we see people as we think they are. We don't analyze the truth for what it is, but we analyze the truth for what we think it should be. That kind of thing. If we've decided that a person is a nasty person, then even if they say something nice, we'll think that they've taunted us. Right? We'll always expect the worst out of them, and so. So, like whatever it is that we encounter in life is really colored by our vision of reality. And that vision is very colored, and it is colored by our likes and dislikes, which is what you call raga and vesha in Sanskrit. So, as again, like this is it's a matter of time, it's a matter of appreciation, it's a matter of some of one's punya karma fruits to blossom. But I think after what is it, like 2024, I first listened to Pujya Swamiji. The very first talk I listened to was I think in August of 2009, and so it's been like 15 years. And I can say that every year, I'm like, now I get Pujya Swamiji. Last year I said this, I probably said this to Nikita also, right? Like, oh, now I think I understand, and I'm like, no, I understand it better now than I did last year. And I'm pretty sure next year I'll be saying the same thing. Because, the way Pujya Swamiji teaches is not in a linear fashion. He doesn't teach point, connect the dots. Pujya Swamiji teaches in a very holistic way. It is multi-dimensional. And the deeper your ability to delve deeper into those deeper meanings will be directly proportional to your exposure to the teachings. The more one is exposed to Vedanta, the more one will find relevance in what Pujya Swamiji said, because those maps of meanings that we've created in our mind have become refined over time. And so now when I actually listen to Pujya Swamiji, I can listen to and again, this after years and years, I can listen to one thing that he says, and I can, in a flash, I can correlate that to like 50, 60 other things. It happens because every single thing that he says is very pregnant with meaning, and it is deliberate. There's no accident over there. Pujya Swamiji himself has stated this in one of his lectures that he does not say anything that's extraneous. He said this. He said sometimes people think that I'm being extraneous, but I'm not. Whatever I say, if you really pay attention, is in service of establishing the vision of the whole. Haji.
What kind of attitude did you need to follow, or routine you needed to follow, in order to kind of sustain this for so long, and you are able to recollect and able to connect at this point all these different things that you studied a while back?
The greatest accomplishment, I would say, with Ishwara's grace, Puja Swamiji's grace, is that when I listen to Vedanta, I have dropped all resistance. I am not analyzing the teacher. I am not analyzing the teaching also. I'm not trying to understand what is taught. I'm only trying to see what is shown. I am trying to be as clean and as unfiltered a pramata as possible. I'm not putting any lenses between myself and the teaching. I'm not putting any lenses between myself and the teacher. What is said is what I try to see, and I don't try to superimpose that, oh, that day I felt this way, and this day I felt that way, and this day this person said something, and therefore I will not try to create those correlations. My core, huh,
My follow up for that is, so I think, yeah, please correct me. I
mhm.
think you're saying that you're taking the words for what they are worth, as said by Pujya Swamiji or any other teacher, and it's coming to you unfiltered, unconditioned, because you're not trying to place judgments on any of these things. Um, Now, in my case, what's happening is I get confused. Like I asked you a question earlier, that it says the subject matter is Brahma Vidya, but then it also says subject matter is Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. So now I probably need a clarification from somebody who has gone through this process to reconcile and understand this. How did you overcome that type of those types of problems?
That's a great question. And so I would say that even now there are certain questions that I have, which I typically pass along to my teacher. So, for instance, it's kind of like I'm definitely not teacher level, but I'm not a beginner also. So I have some understanding of the teachings, but there's a lot that I don't know as well. And so I make it a point that as soon as I have a question, I don't sit on it for too long. And I make sure that I note down that question, because my question implies a certain gap. And if there's a gap, suppose you're building a high-rise tower, and if there's a gap somewhere, then the floors that you build on top of it will start to collapse. And so I don't allow there for any gaps to be there. If there's a doubt, I'll ask it immediately, or I'll make sure that I note it down so that I can ask it. The
Okay.
other thing is that over a course of time, and I think this has served me very well. I can, you know, uh, for some reason, I have always enjoyed bringing drawing attention to the teachings of Vedanta as taught by our teachers. Like, and this I would say, if my first, I was 22 years old when I first encountered Vedanta, for about 14 years back, and within 3 or 4 months, I started like sharing what I understood with other people. Now I can tell you for a fact that the things that I was sharing back then, I would be very embarrassed to read right now, because most of it was like very half baked, and a lot of it was also stupid and incorrect. But this was not me back then projecting myself as somebody who knows, but this was me being like, yeah, this teaching is so glorious, it's so amazing. I had a sense of awe for it, and I couldn't contain it, and so I wanted to share it with others. But I would always be like, yeah, but you listen to this teacher, you listen to that teacher. I would always like usher people awake. You go now, you go. And I still have that habit even from back then. But then what happened is, as people started asking me questions, there were certain answers that I couldn't give. And then those questions that others had, it's sort of like they've become amplified now, right? I've become part of a larger group where there are even more questions, some of which had not even occurred to me. And then they become my questions, and then I take it to my teacher, and then I get more clarity on it, or I mull over it. And so the interaction that I had with others actually helped me further refine my own understanding, because and in some cases it was me asking my teachers, but in some cases it was me also sitting in a quiet corner trying to think about the question that was asked, and then I will give an answer. And so what this whole thing does is, first of all, one has to take the subject matter very seriously, and the seriousness of the subject matter is such that, even when you're bathing, even when you're, many Vedantic insights will come to you. They'll come to you even in the shower, they'll come to you even in the study, they'll come to you when you're driving at work also, even in a passive sense, they will start coming to you, because you have been sort of, rotating those wheels during your contemplation time. So that has served me very well. I have The other thing is that I committed many countless errors with my teacher as a student who was, filled with a lot of arrogance and with a lot of, I guess I was trying to seek validation from my teachers and other things. And in conversation with these teachers, when they were kind enough to point these issues out, that Prashant, you need to, this is a problem, this is happening. I'm like, yeah, those conversations with my teachers, if my teachers had not pointed it out to me, I would continue being a bag full of, like, hot air. Right? Which is not to say I'm not devoid of that completely, but, it's the bag is smaller now, much smaller. And so this is again why the teacher helps so much, because sometimes we walk away with an understanding and a sense of ourselves, and the teacher helps us deflate some of that. The guru's job is not to, like, pat you on the back that, oh, good job, Prashant, well done, you understand Vedanta so well. No, because then why do I need a guru? I could have my wife also do that. The guru's job is to basically guide one towards the teachings, in the path of the teachings, to ensure that there are no obstacles in the way of knowledge. And sometimes those obstacles may not just be practical obstacles, sometimes they can be practical obstacles, but sometimes I could be the obstacle in my own way. And so that it took me a long period of time to come to grips with some of these psychological things as well, and it really helped me a lot. And the most important, well, not most, one of the other important things also is that very quickly, again, due to my connection with a lot of people in Satsanga, but also due to exposure with a multitude of teachers, both from within and without the Sampradaya, I was, with Ishwara's Kripa only, able to narrow down exclusively to Puja Swamiji and a few select students of his as the most legitimate torch bearers of knowledge. And there are also teachers, no names given, nothing will be shared, but there are also teachers that maybe within the Sampradaya who are not doing, um, um, who are not presenting the teachings in the manner that they ought to be presented. And that is not to doubt anyone's jnana nishtha, but it also takes a certain ability to be a teacher and to show. And that is where Puju Samji is head and shoulders, and a few students of his are head and shoulders above the rest. And so I, rather than saying don't study under so and so person, I allow people to infer it by the people that I recommend to study under. And then I leave it at that. That is the most important thing. Puju
So
Samji did the
in
job for everyone.
in short, you're basically saying that all the clarifications or your roadblocks were resolved by engaging with the guru.
Engaging with the guru, sometimes the guru will also plant a seed. Sometimes they will also plant the seed of doubt. Sometimes they will also plant the seed of insecurity in you. But see, for some people, not everybody can handle it. I'm not saying I could. I was like tearing my hair out when things happen in life. But when they do it, they will also say, Prashant, this is really going to hurt. But then at the end of that traumatic incident, you recognize that, that's what happens. When you go to a psychologist, a good therapy session is one where you come out crying. Okay, it's not one where you come out laughing. You know, your sitcoms can make you laugh. You don't need to go to a therapist to do that. The therapist is going to touch a few raw nerves. Like, it's kind of like if you've been bitten by a snake, you need to let some blood. You need to, just tie your arm if you're bitten in your hand over here or something. You tie it very tightly, you cut the blood flow. and then you sever a vein or something or an artery, and you allow some blood to pour out because that's what you're doing, and that causes a lot of pain. And the guru will also, if one can handle it, the guru will also cause that kind of pain to you by deflating the ego balloon. It's important. This is not something. See, this is why like people like, oh, why do I need a guru? I listen to lectures. Yeah, allow the lecture to do that. See if that works. The guru is not going to do all this to you in a public setting. You have to have that guru shishya samvada where you go to the guru saying, oh, please, guru, help me out. Where are my shortcomings? What's happening? Guru will poke you. Then you'll be like, ah, and you feel a deep psychological release. You feel like a 1,000 feet high you're floating. You feel that because you know that something profound has taken place. And these incidents happen with the guru because the guru knows where you stand in relation to the teaching. The guru knows how distant one's understanding is from the teaching. The guru knows which wrong roads I have taken which will lead me away from the teaching. The guru knows that. I can't be smart enough to judge that. So even today, it may seem that Array Prashant is conducting such a no, I need to go to my guru because I am not that smart. And if a person thinks that they are smart enough not to have a guru, Vedanta will not work. It can't work. This was good session. Any other closing questions? I know Shikanji, you have to drop. You're welcome to drop. But if anyone has closing sessions questions, I can take, or we can meet next week. Anyone? No.
So Prashant, I have
Ajay.
one question to ask. So typically, during the day, so mornings usually I have some kind of a routine, and then I mean I'm talking about a spiritual routine, and then I go through the day, and then evening again some of maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of something, and somehow I've heard that spirituality cannot be compartmentalized in one's life, right? Like you can't have 1 hour of spiritual activity and then nothing after that. I mean, it doesn't make sense because if there is a constant undercurrent of the spiritual knowledge, then it's a better life to live. But this compartmentalization uh, happens to me very naturally, right? So once in the morning I finish something and then I go ahead with my day, it just automatically drops off and I feel completely disconnected from what I've done in the morning until maybe a little bit of it comes back in the evening. So if you can share some kind of tips that will help retain this undercurrent throughout the day, then that would be very helpful.
I tried very hard. Not very easy. Not very easy. It's still a struggle. It gets easier. It gets easier with exposure. It gets easier with deeper appreciation. The best tip I can give here sounds like a cliche, but it's not. Listen to Pujya Swamiji do Shravanam of his talks. When you do Shravanam of his talks, and you do it when you have the mind space for it, and make sure that you set some fixed time for Shravanam. It may sound like compartmentalization, but Pujya Swamiji, because he unfolds the vision in the way that he does, it will linger with you for the rest of the day if you keep up with it. You will not actually have to struggle for the rest of the day because he'll make you see how it is you alone and how stays with you throughout. He'll give you that appreciation. So if one is looking for the tough road, then they'll have to do all sorts of mental gimmicks and all. Okay, maybe set a reminder, maybe have a tattoo over here that must be something. Maybe those things will help. I don't know. Maybe it helps for some people. It doesn't work for me because Vedanta is not something one has to be reminded of. It helps, but I'm not saying it's necessary. Vedanta is something that one has to. It's kind of like how shall you say? If there is an object, it can come close to you or it can move away from you. But you cannot move away from yourself. You are who you are, and you are with yourself all the time. And that is what Vedanta is. Vedanta is knowledge of the self. And Pujya Swamiji shows how to keep that vision alive at all times. And so I find that to the extent that I am more connected to Pujya Swamiji's teachings 1 hour a day or whatever it may be, to that extent, the teachings carry over the entire day. 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. It's there the entire day. I've had such experiences personally. And it is only because of the way Pujya Samji shows. So you listen to Pujya Samji's talks, you do that 3.5 year course, you will see in a matter of months that, my God, this is working. It works. And just imagine, so many grihasthas go to the Vedanta course, and a very significant fraction of them come out as sannyasis. That is how much they've been transformed by the teaching. Pujya Samji never tells somebody that, oh, in fact, he rejects more people. He'll be like, why do you want to become a sannyasi? Why do you want to, why do you want to put yourself through this? You know, Pujya Samji will reject it to start with, just to test the nishtha. But so many people stick around because they cannot but see what Pujya Samji shows. You cannot help but see this. No, that is how the vision of Vedanta is taught. Pujya Samji will show you when you'll not have any choice. It will just happen, and that is what it means to look upon oneself as one upon whom the pramana is being operated. When the pramana is operated, when the eyes are operated, the object will be seen. When the jnana chakshu is open, when the pramana is operating there at the level of the vritti, the knowledge will take place. Once it takes place, you know that there is no going back. Because today, even at a very basic level, there's nothing that you can tell me that will convince me, nor will it convince you if I say, is there anything greater than knowledge of the self? You know this to be a fact, that there isn't. Pujya Swamiji will make you see that fact. That's the difference. We understand it, he will make you see it. Okay,
Right.
good. So then we shall officially close and meet next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnar Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. 1 second.